Talk Show.
Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to the Castle of Horror interview segment where we talk to writers and creators of today's genre worlds from Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. This week we're talking to author Jennifer Ziegler. She's a writer of contemporary, realistic, and she says somewhat goofy YA, MG, and this is your line, an occasional OMG. I don't know what that means. You'll have to explain that to me. Her titles include Revenge of the Angels, that's Scholastic. It's a brand new one. Revenge of the Flower Girls, also from Scholastic. Last year, Assassin's Serendipity from Random House. How Not to Be Popular, which is an extraordinarily popular book from Random House. She also says she is approximately 45% Jane Austen and 55% cartoon. And she reports, you self-report, good at making salsa, daydreaming, and the occasional pun. And you're bad at remembering names, numbers. This is like a Playboy profile. It's like turn-ons, names, numbers. She requires sunshine, coffee, and the occasional bite of dark chocolate, and her favorite author in the whole world is Chris Barton, her fantastic husband, who was actually on the show about a month ago. You can find her at jenniferziegler.net. Did I get all that right?
You did. You got it all right.
Welcome. I'm so happy to talk to you. It's so awesome.
Oh, it's so good to talk to you. It's been too long.
Yes. Okay. I want to briefly pause and mention that our show has a sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/horror. Audible has over 180,000 titles to choose for your device. This week's recommendation from our poll of listeners is Shock Value, How a Few Eccentric Outsiders Gave Us Nightmares, Conquered Hollywood, and Invented Modern Horror by Jason Zinnemann. Check out your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/horror. All right. Welcome, Jennifer. I actually just spoke to your husband, Chris. I don't know. I want to say it was a month ago, maybe a couple of months ago. That was a fun conversation. So my question is, he's a New York Times bestselling author. You're a very popular author, and I've seen lockers in schools dressed up to look like the spines of your books, which I find astonishing. So what is that like? What's it like living with another working, like, regular selling novelist?
Well, I can only speak to what it's like to live with Chris, and it's pretty awesome because, for many reasons. First of all, he's just adorable. I would say I recommend living with Chris, but then I don't want other people to try
I'll
it.
look into that.
I guess the main benefit is that he gets it. I think a lot of people don't understand how crazy hard this business is and how, yes, it looks like I'm just staring out the window, but I'm actually working.
Yeah.
And he understands my process and I understand his process, and we can respect each other's processes and help each other out. And
are your processes different from one another? And after a little bit, I'm going to ask you about your process, but are they different from one another?
Oh, yeah. I think everyone has no one has the same process as someone else. I think they're like fingerprints, but he's very different, and I think it's good. I think it's good that his process is different. What he writes is different. He's kind of left-brained. He's nonfiction. He's picture book. I'm more right-brained, emotional, YA, MG. He's a little bit country. I'm a little bit rock and roll. And, so we're able to really complement each other.
So if you're together out at a, I don't know, let's make something up. Let's say that you're out at a baseball game or you're out walking through an outdoor mall at the Arboretum or something. If you look over at him and he seems sort of lost in thought, is it a good bet that he's actually working on a book in his brain, in his mind at that point, or that you are? To me, that's the defining thing about being with other writers.
Yeah, I think I can recognize that look in his eye. Yeah. Well, but it would be different. Like I think when he works out something in his mind, it's more of a logistical problem. And I think because the way we deal with our problems is similar. We both just tear out the door and just go for a walk or for a run, and this is to work out things in our head, whether it's a personal problem or more often it's a writer problem. And so usually I think he has spreadsheets in his mind. He just, he's not a robot, but he's just very logical. So I think if we were walking through a mall, hand in hand, we're adorable. It's disgusting. I would look over and he would probably be sort of weighing the pros and cons and being very analytical and very logical and then coming up with a solution. And by the time we're back to the car, back to our house or what have you, he would have a solution or a couple solutions that he's going to weigh the pros and cons of. And me, I just do the la, 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 la. I just daydream. That's I just daydream, and from that, I sometimes hit upon a solution. So very different minds.
I actually want to return to process in a sec, but first I want to talk specifically about Revenge of the Angels and get to your writing a little bit that way. Could you read for me? So I was reading this book last night, and I wanted to pick just a little sample of writing. If we go to page 135 of at least the copy that we have of Revenge of the Angels, the paragraph that starts at the bottom, the neighbors have been like grandparents to us, and finishes at about at the middle of the next page. Just that one paragraph.
Sure. Okay. The neighbors have been like grandparents to us, and it makes me want to go all Dawn-like on whoever took the St. Nick candy container. But the worst of it is, I hate thinking that someone we know, maybe even another neighbor, might have done such a thing. I didn't like the thought that someone in our town, maybe someone on our block, or someone we went to church with might have taken Mr. Neighbor's family heirloom. I don't like looking at people we've known our whole lives and wondering if they could have done something so mean. And if we ever find out who it is, the first thing I'll do is ask them why. Because I need to understand their reasons, even if I don't agree with them. Otherwise, the world doesn't make sense.
So I chose that because I was struck by that paragraph, and I really believe this girl when she says this. When she says, when I figure out the person who did this mean thing, the first thing I'm going to do is ask them why they did it. This is Darby. She's the one. The book is about three triplets who have three very defined personalities. And so, first of all, do you identify most with this Darby, the good-hearted one? There's the good-hearted one, the energetic one, and the strong-willed one. If I can be really gross about it, that is what it is. Is that you've got the strong one, the sweet one, and the energetic one. Do you identify most with this? And if not, how do you create such distinct personalities? I mean, what goes into all of that? That's a hell of a hard question.
Yeah. First, I kind of worry that maybe your listeners might think a title like Revenge of the Angels, that this is, supernatural, end of the world type stuff. So I'm really glad you explained that.
This is okay. Well, if you want, you go ahead and give us the elevator pitch on Revenge of the Angels.
Oh, no. I think you did a good job. But to answer your question, I don't study it too much. I think there's something, I guess because I don't have that analytical brain like my husband, but I would think that Darby is more my id. I think when you might agree with this with your writing, that every character you create is going to be spawned by a fragment of yourself. You just can't pull things out of the air. They have to spring up from somewhere inside you. And Darby always ends up being the heart of the books. She's the more thoughtful, reflective one. And so I don't know that it's so much planned, but I think because I get to have these reflective passages with her, there's going to be some more soulful passages, and I'm going to get to really work out things that concern me or that concerned me when I was that age. And then with the others, they're also fragments of me. I have a temper. I control it, but when Dawn gets upset, sometimes it can be cathartic when one of your characters thinks something mean or does something mean, and because you've been there, and so it can be really cathartic to write those scenes.
The thing that's really thrilling for the characters, and I think for the readers watching them, is that the characters know one another so well that they know how they're going to react. They know that when Dawn, the sister who gets upset, is getting upset, they have methods of maneuvering their way around that, The way you do
frog marching her to safety, yeah.
Right, and then locking her in a coat closet and one. So and I also read Assassin's Serendipity, which is also about sisters, and also took place in, if I recall correctly, Johnson City, or if not Johnson City, somewhere around there, which
a small Texas town. Yeah, a made-up place. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And this one, Revenge of the Angels, is it in Johnson City or is it in another event?
It's an actual in Assassin's Serendipity. I think I said it in a place called Barton, Texas, and this was not a shout out to my husband because he and I were just friends at the time. It's Barton Cottage was where they lived in the original Jane Austen book. So I just created this town called Barton, Texas, and there's so many. I mean, there's Barton Springs and Barton Creek. There's a lot of Barton things. Yes.
Because I thought it was the same Barton that you see all over Central Texas with Barton Springs and Barton Creek and
Right.
Wow.
And then I end up married to a Barton. I know it's a little woo, but
So let me ask you this. I mean, so first of all, did you have sisters?
Yes, I have a younger sister. And pardon?
So this is from life. This business of life.
It is from life. The theme of family is very strong in my writing, and identity. But I like to write scenes with the family dynamic even more so than I like to write the peer dynamic. And I just come from a really close-knit goofball family, and I just like to explore that a little more. And I shared a room with my sister from the time she was born till the time I left for college. And
really? Wow.
Yeah. So, so we were close in all the good ways and, all the bad ways and all that, took my hairbrush and also the, cry on your shoulder way, and we're super close still. So yeah, sisterhood, I think it's something I'm very comfortable writing. I've never been a twin or a triplet, so this is something that really required some research and imagination, and I didn't want to just have one character times three. I really wanted them to be distinct. And so for this latest round, this has been really interesting. But that dynamic of knowing the other person so well that you get all these different perspectives. You get the point of view of whoever's narrating the chapter, and then you get their point of view of what they're seeing of the others and what's going on. And this was really handy with Assassin's Serendipity too. With the sister is talking about how she feels, but she's also remarking about what she sees her sister doing and interpreting motives. And the reader's the only one that knows how wrong or right they are. Because they can see when a character is misreading the sister, or they can see when a character is really kind of fooling themselves, which we all do. So like I said, it's a messy process, this writing, but it's cheaper than therapy, and it's really fun.
And I assume your writers, who are young people, I assume that this is something that appeals to them, the whole sister thing. I mean, do you hear from any writers about how they feel about this and whether it reminds them of their own relationships with their sisters or their siblings?
Yes. With Assassin's Serendipity, that was a YA novel. So I got a lot of, oh my gosh, this is me and my sister, but I'm Daphne and she's Gabby. Or, it'll be in reverse. Oh my gosh, my sister drives me crazy. She's just like Daphne and I'm Gabby. And so it was a little more there was a little more overt identification where they went a little deeper. What I'm hearing with this middle grade series is more the antics and the themes and not so much the characters, which makes sense, really, because I think there is a difference between middle grade and YA in that way, and in that with YA it's more about the inner life and the inner struggles, and not always, but there's a lot more of this, who am I? And who am I going to be? And then with middle grade, it's more relationships and your part in the world and that sort of thing. So I think in that way the differences of the reactions make sense.
Wow. You know what's different about this, though, is if you think back to when you left home, right? So you're living with your sister and you leave home to go to college. If you had been writing then, and you'll have to tell me if you were or not, but if you had been writing then, the world of a book, I sell a book, the book comes out, and people have the ability to communicate with you directly by leaving you notes on, Goodreads or reviews on Amazon and all that. That stuff just doesn't exist. It's a non-thing. There is nothing remotely like it. The only people who get to talk to you about your book back then are I don't know, the reviewer and the publisher's weekly, basically. And
true.
This is a world that didn't exist. I mean, at least when I started, that world simply wasn't there.
Definitely. It was very different when I started too. I think it was 97 was when I published my first book, and I had to FedEx my manuscripts, and then I would get them back, and they would have little Post-it notes with all the little editor marks, and it looked like it had feathers, and and it was very different. And just even from before I got started, I hadn't met a published author, that I know of. I might have bumped shoulders in the grocery store with one and not realized it, but I never actually met and spoke with a published author until I was in college and in person. And now you have all this access, and you realize that authors are real people, maybe a little dorkier than most. So it seems a little, they're more accessible, and so the dream seems not as far away. It seems more doable. So for me, I thought it was becoming an astronaut.
Oh, well, you said, I think before we started recording, you mentioned writers. What's the book for placing your work? Writer's Market.
Writer's Market, yeah. I had to go to the library and research that. Mm-hmm.
Is that how you sold your first book?
No. I was placing things in magazines that way, and I had dreamed of getting a book, but oh my gosh, no. See, I snuck into publishing the back way. I went through the back door, and they went, "Who's this person?"
Let me tell you something. I've interviewed a lot of authors, and you and I have been on panels together, so it's not like we've never met before. And I will say, out of as many writers as I've talked to, they all have a different story. Every single one of them. It's like there is no way. When somebody goes, "What is the way that I get my book published?" And the answer is, I don't know, but it is your way.
Right. Conference,
you sound like
queries.
Jack Palance in City Slickers.
Yeah. Yeah, I got tapped to do the mass markets first. I tried out and got a job writing, the Sweet Valley High books and things like that. So I was doing the mass market books and writing under assumed names and stuff, and was doing that for a living before I got to publish the Jennifer Ziegler books.
Wow.
But it was great. I really honed my process. It was wonderful because, you're just a cog on the assembly line. You're given the synopsis, you flesh it out, there's some revision back and forth, and then you're done and you get paid. and you don't have to go on the junket and promote it and, have, your ego out there getting battered. And so it was all about the writing. It was all about the writing.
Sweet Valley High, you said.
Sweet Valley High. That was one of them. I did several series. I did some TV tie-in work. There was, do you remember the show Alias? Sydney Briscoe was Jennifer. Yeah. I got to write her origin story, actually.
You're kidding me. You're kidding me. Oh, my God.
I'm not.
Those are really, no, the funny thing is I completely identify with that. That was how I got my start, too, was doing, outside of some fantasy stuff, was picking up those tie-in novels. Exactly right. Like somebody's written sometimes they give you an outline, like you said. Sometimes they go, give us something like this, and so you do the outline back and forth until they
right.
Like
yeah.
Wow. Does that world still exist?
I still outline because of that. Yeah.
So actually, let's skip to that. So you just said you outline. You mean when you're doing Revenge of the Angels? I assume because your publisher in this case is gone. Well, doggone it, people liked the first one, so can you give us another one of these books? And can you give it to us by 8 weeks from now? Am I making that up, or does that sound about right?
No, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I think I had like 2 months.
Right. And so what gets you from here to there? I mean, because I tell students all the time, I go, you need to figure out a way to do this book in 2 months, and that means that if you get 2 weeks in and you haven't done anything, it is going to be that much harder for you to hit that date 2 months from now, which doesn't move,
Right.
But how do you get there? I mean, what's the first thing you do? Do you sit down and you do an outline, or if so, how?
That's not the very first thing I do, but it's pretty soon. And you're right. It's all discipline. This is where you really have to, have a technique and a discipline to fall back on. People think it's sit around and, I'm inspired and la, 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 and this beautiful prose flows out of you. And it's not like that. It is like, okay, time to go to work. And so the first thing I do, I think, is I really just kind of brainstorm. I take a lot of walks. I take a lot of showers. I'm kind of weird, and I walk around and I mutter to myself, and I'm just sort of trying to particle beam myself into the world. And so in this case, this is the very first time I had done a sequel. The very first time I had done a follow-up book. So in this case, I had to reread the first one, and I wanted to recapture the voices, but I was really nervous about recapturing the voices and getting them right. So I reread my book, which is painful to do, I think, because you're never done, even when you're done. Yeah,
you want to make edits to it, right?
You do. Even just reading a passage aloud on a podcast, you kind of want to change the wording a little bit. But,
sure.
So I had to do that research and recapture, and then I really had to think about the heart of the book. And what happens for me is like these little mini movies sort of, roll in my head. And I just write down whatever I see, whatever I hear. So sometimes, like that passage I just read, I don't quite remember when I wrote it, but it could have been one of the earliest things I wrote, because it could have been, just whenever I hear the characters' voices talking about something, trying to figure something out, either talking to each other or just, in their own narrative voice. I write it down, and I write down ideas for situations, and anything that comes to mind, I put it down. And so then I start with this big sort of nebula of ideas. And then from that, I try to impose some sort of structure on it. And I do an outline, not because I love outlines, but because I was not blessed with a brain like my husband's. I am not very left-brained. I get lost in a shopping mall. I don't know direction. I don't know. I'm just not that way. So
what that suggests, though, is that even people who don't do outlines actually do them. They're just carrying it around in their head and maybe not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have. Well, like a good example, and a really good friend of mine, Varian Johnson, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful guy, great author. He is an engineer. His day job is he designs bridges, So structure obviously comes really naturally to him. And so I think he doesn't have to work really hard to find it. It's just natural. It's just things are going to fall into a structure as he writes. And we've talked about this, he and I, and how different we are, because with him, what he does is he revises many, many, many times to sort of plump it up and add layers and go deeper with characters. And for me, the relationship stuff, the emotional stuff, that stuff is the easy thing. That's, what I need to do is have a framework to hang all that on, or that's all I'm going to have is this, big kind of emotional blob of a story that's, not really flowing right.
Do you think in terms of the act structure, I mean, like, in terms of somewhere around 3/4 of the way through, you should be turning towards, the final, bunch of business that's going to go on in the book, and at roughly the midpoint, this is a movie concept.
Right. Yeah, the 3-act structure.
We're so built, we're so built on movies now that I think we think about it a lot. Do you follow that kind of thing? Yeah.
I think that part actually does come instinctively in a way. I think we just kind of naturally, not only from writing, and believe me, the 20 some odd mass markets that I wrote, I definitely learned that sort of framework and the rising action and the turning point and the, but also because we watch so many movies and we read so many stories, and, we're naturally, that's how we know it. That's how we know a story. So I think I know to build to something, and then I know to, wrap it up. And I think I know to do that. I don't necessarily use the save the cat method or anything like that, but that part I think is inherent.
I love that you gave a call out to the save the cat method, though. Still, that you name dropped that.
I know they need help. I just, hardly anyone's heard of that movement. So.
Well, no, but I mean, look, it's still very inside. There's either people who read all those things, or they aren't familiar with that. Or there's Save the Cat, easily probably one of the most popular outline books in the storytelling universe. But still, it also tells me that you pay attention to your craft enough that you're paying attention to, to what the tools are out there that people are using.
There's some great tools out there. I think, like you were saying, the advice you give to people is you were talking about, this might have been before the podcast, about the Twitter hashtag about query fail, go and educate yourself. And it's so great to do that before you are trying
really
to launch yourself.
I think the audience might get a lot out of that. Explain what query fail is, and why, if you're a young writer, or a new writer, you could be a 45-year-old young writer as far as I'm concerned. But what is query fail? And I do think you can get a lot out of it. But or is that one that you follow? You might follow a different hashtag.
I don't follow it per se, but I've seen it. I am friends, and I follow a lot of agents in social media, and one of the things that they do is they will post about query fails, about people who are doing it all wrong, and they might lift hilarious passages where someone is basically saying, I'm like J.K. Rowling, only better, and, or they'll have
a query being the email that you write to the agent and saying, hey, I've written a book. Can you take a look at my book? And this is a thing that everybody must do. Everybody must be able to write a query, no matter how embarrassing it seems. So the funny thing is, the failures are roughly about as long generally as the good ones. The failures look a lot like a good one, except for that they are bad. It's like,
and they don't follow the guidelines. It's important to know, and yes, it is jumping through hoops, and yes, what is important is the manuscript, but also what's important is a willingness in this business to play by the rules, and to show that you're willing to put in the work and do the research and not look for shortcuts. And so following the standard query guidelines is really important. And when people bristle and say I don't want to do that, I can understand because it is hard. I think it's harder to write a query sometimes than it is to write a draft of a book. I mean, I understand, but you only have to do it until you get the agent, and then you're done. It's not like you have to keep writing queries. So it's just do it. Just do it. And they have the guy. Agents are making it so easy now because they're on the agency web pages, and so you can follow that. And so there's so much good information out there, and then you have your Save the Cat books, and you have Writer's Market, and you have Writer's Digest, and you have these amazing bloggers like Cynthia Leidick-Smith and Harold Underdown, and people who are really, really sharing terrific information. And so you can find your own process. I always tell people don't go blow by blow the way they have it in a book. This is how you write a novel because everyone's different. But you can take a little from here and a little from there, and you can come up with your own way of writing a book. And then you follow the guidelines to sell the book, to place the book. Yeah,
and that is frustrating. I mean, just think about, just like being a young actor or a young actress trying to get your first job, on Broadway or something. Mm-hmm. You go into so many auditions, and these people don't know you, and they don't, it's not that they don't believe in your vision, it's just that everybody has a vision, and there's only one way they're going to get to be able to look at everybody, and it's if everybody shows up for the audition and does what the audition says. And that's kind of what's going on with, hey, agent, please look at my book. Here's a couple. I'm looking at Query Fail right now, just today's coming through on the Twitter.
You're multitasking.
Somebody goes, every morning I have several mass query emails in my inbox, automatic delete, Query Fail. Somebody goes, your book is not more important than the Bible. When you tell us this, we assume you've got a square. and then, and there's lots of those. And they also, I mean, truly, we were talking about this. It makes me sad, because I know that people are just, like Homer in the parking lot trying to figure out how to do marketing about a bowling alley. They're just running around trying to figure out, what do I say? I don't know. I guess I'll tell him this book is better than the Bible. I don't know. What am I going to say?
Yes, something that'll grab their attention. Yeah, and there's a lot of bad advice out there too. And it could have been that someone said, hey, you need to make a really big bold statement, and that's a big bold statement. And so
it sure is.
It could, yeah.
But normal. That's what breaks my heart. Is all this stuff happens all the time. Well, anyway. Jennifer, tell you what, before I let you go, is there anything else that you would like to talk about or mention or plug or anything?
Oh, gosh. That's so
website?
open-ended, Jay.
I'm sorry?
My website?
Yes. I mean,
well, of course. I have, that is the way to come to me. It's jenniferziegler.net. And, okay, so I've been really busy lately, so I haven't been blogging that much, but I'm hoping to get back to it because one thing I love about blogs is that it's a great way to sort of stretch your literary muscles without having to do the deep dive on a major project, and it's a way to connect with people and to really explore issues that hopefully other people find interesting. So right now, I think my last post was, there was another president maybe or something when I posted last. But I do hope to get back to it. We we've been doing the newlywed thing, and Chris and I, and we have 4 kids, and we're in a house while our other house is getting fixed. So we've been kind of busy with our day jobs and our writing and our moving and, appearances, because, there's the writer life and there's the author life. But all that to say, this is my guilt talking. That I do hope to go back and blog. I'm never going to be one of those people who blogs every day, but, I miss it. It's a great way to connect with people. So jenniferziegler.net, come by and just, I love to get mail. I'm not super speedy sometimes in replying, but I always do eventually reply, and I love, love, love to hear from people on their thoughts on their books or, thoughts on writing and what have you.
I'm on your website right now. First of all, your website is like 1,000 times better than mine, so there we go. It's in way better shape. But I have to ask you this one question. The 80s picture with the pink headband, is that really you? in
that
the 80s?
is really me. Yes, that's yeah. And
that's amazing. This could actually be the cover of a Sweet Valley High novel, to be honest.
No, it was on a cover. I'm not joking. There's a book that came out called Dear Teen Me, where they had a bunch of authors write letters to their teen selves. And then, well, first it was on the website, and so we would submit pictures for the website to go up. And so people were, submitting their band photos and stuff like that. So I submitted that one because that so summed up who I was in high school. I think there's a poster, I don't have it in front of me, but there's like a poster of the Police or the Boomtown Rats or whoever I was listening to at the time behind me on the wall. And I was talking on the phone, and I had that, I don't know why I'm wearing a headband. It might have been, I don't know. I was in an Olivia Newton-John phase, I guess. But anyway, they put it right smack dab in the middle of the cover of that book.
Yes, no, I can see it. I just looked it up. You're totally right. That's perfect. That's really, I think the headband is what really sells it, is that this is true. Everybody from Olivia Newton-John to literally Supergirl had a headband at this time. Look, I was there. I know. Everybody also had a mullet. If you were a boy, mullets were not yet a weird hick thing to have. Everybody had them, and it's very
everyone.
strange.
Yeah. That's right. Mullets. Before that, it was the feathered hair and Oh my gosh. Parachute pants.
Right.
What were we thinking? Gosh.
I don't know what you're talking about. That stuff is awesome. That's I'm all for it. Okay, I really appreciate you talking. I'm sure we could talk like for hours, but because especially I would love to go deeper into the process and so forth. But it's really been delightful. And, anytime.
Love to talk about it. And this was so much fun, Jay. I miss talking to you. We need to do this more often.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, come to Colorado. All right. Have a fantastic evening. Jennifer Ziegler's new book is Revenge of the Angels. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will talk to you guys soon. Jennifer, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.